Now it's 6 o'clock, and welcome to the October 24th, 2023 meeting of the special meeting for Cascade Law. Starting with
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call.
President Lorraine,
I am here.
Vice President Clute. Here. Commissioner Nats.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Sweet. Here.
All right, modifications, additions, and changes to the agenda, sir.
We will be striking number 4. We have no executive session tonight.
Okay, perfect. Public comment. Do we have anybody either in the public here or on the screen that's interested in speaking? No, we do not. Seeing none, moving ahead. Special presentation and reports by outside resources, staff, and government officials. Introduction and history of the city electrical upgrade project. Mark Johnson.
Thanks, Commissioners. Think I did not work. We're 4:10 now, getting off right now, right? You don't want to be here at 6:05, you might get run over. Good evening, Commissioners. Here to talk to you about power tonight, so I'm sure you're interested about that. Well, I'd like to provide some context and a little bit of history related to the whole question within Cascade Locks about developing sufficient infrastructure. And you have a lot of material, I think, that's been forwarded to you. You have some stuff in person, and I'm going to walk you through some of these documents that hopefully will help. So shed some light, and then we had planned on having a guy from BKI be here in person. Apparently there's some big traffic for Block 1205 trying to get here, so he's here on the screen instead of here in person. So he's here as well as Scott Lindsay from BKI as well, and they'll provide some substance in terms of what the proposals could be for the port to consider in the business park related to electrical infrastructure. So that's our cast of presenters this evening. So there's essentially been about a 10-year formal relationship between the city and the port as it comes to the development of electrical infrastructure and all infrastructure in Cascade Locks. And in your packet, or either digitally or in there, or actually it's there because I printed it off, you'll find a 2013 intergovernmental agreement between the city and the port that is there. Some of you may have seen this before, but this is the time when the city and the port came together to try to clarify goals, to clarify a vision for the city of Cascade Locks, and then recitals. There's some interesting phrase in here where in B it says the parties desire to enter into an agreement whereby each agrees to perform the functions outlined below for the purposes of developing economic activities, enhancing existing and emerging businesses, and to attract new businesses and jobs. Part C says the parties intend this agreement to facilitate economic development from the state signing in perpetuity on into the future. And as you look down at your responsibilities, section 1, item C, I would just point out, electric service. Both parties agree to develop sufficient electrical service for the port and an industrial park. And obviously the port is the economic driver within the city, and the city is the utility. So the city's acknowledging their role as a utility to provide adequate power to the port. Section 2, if you're able to look to that, electric service. At this point, of course, this is a long time ago in terms of the capacity of the system, so it's a very different time. But so at that point in time, the city agreed to provide 2 megawatts of electricity service to port industrial property through existing conduits. The city will make preparations to provide up to 4 megawatts of electricity to the port and the park and so forth. And then down under the port's responsibilities, under the electrical system, it says the port agrees to pay for preparation, delivery, infrastructure of providing 4 megawatts of electric power essentially to the port and to the industrial area. So I just wanted to include this to show you that there's been a long-standing understanding between the port and the city about the need to provide adequate power to supply the port's business park, because that does drive the create jobs and free businesses to Cascade Locks and so forth. So this document has become the driving or the foundation, let's just say, of other items that have happened over the course of the past 10 years as well, related to the same topic of infrastructure. So I went on after 2013, you know, Mr. Lorraine, you were here, you remember some of the other projects the port considered. There was a casino conversation at one time. There was a Nestle water conversation at one time. All that was kind of the port trying to create some economic activity within Cascade Locks. All of that would require additional electrical infrastructure and so forth. So, and the city understood that at that time. And that's why about 2018, 2017, the city applied for a grant from the Economic Development Administration for funds to harden and improve the city's power distribution for its system, and then to also provide the needed infrastructure to supply the business park with the service so that the port could continue to develop the park and having more jobs and growth in Cascade Locks. And it was all, of course, in the spirit of the 2013 IGA. I think you got the copy of this too. It's in your, did we get the, did you get that one? Okay. I think I shared this with Albert before, but anyway, this is the, on page 1 of the city's grant application, and actually it was awarded from EDA to the city. The authorized scope of work, this is what the city applied for, this is what the city agreed to do, and this is what EDA supplied the funds for them to do. Number 1 is to purchase a substation for Bonneville Power Administration. This would be the, what's called the BPA substation, if you will. It's on the south side of I-84. I think you know that location. Number 2 is to harden approximately 500 feet of the transmission lines across I-84 between the BPA substation and the Cascade Lock substations. Hardening entails placing wood poles with metal poles set in concrete foundation to support wiring. 3 involves to install switchgear to use power capacity of both the BPA and the Cascade Lock substation at the same time. By the Cascade Lock substation, it's also now known as the Pyramid substation. You'll hear that come up later when Guy talks about that. Number 3, removal and replacement of approximately 1,100 linear feet of overhead lines with underground lines, again, trying to harden and make the system more resilient for all of Cascade Locks, between the Cascade Lock substation and the business park entrance. And then finally, number 3 was the installation of approximately 2,300 linear feet of underground power lines throughout the business park. So the grant that the city applied for and they received from EDA included funds for what was called hardening and improving and making it more resilient, the whole system, transmission system for the city itself, but also included new installation of capacity and underground lines throughout the business park. So that was in the original grant. They're also key feature in here, and I apologize if you guys don't have this, but I thought you would, but under the funding for the grant, the total project cost at that time is estimated at $3 million and some change. That included $2.4 million from EDA with 600 and some $1,000 of match. And the port agreed to provide $120,000 or $121,000 to help the city achieve the match required to be able to get the grant. Now there's some back and forth. If you would talk to Jeff Grove, he would say that was going to be a loan to the city would pay it back. If you talk to Gordon Zimmerman, then manager, he would say, no, you guys agreed to pay us the money. Either way, the port was going to help the city achieve the match they needed to be able to achieve the grant from EDA, and they did get the grant, and that was awarded. So that's that part of it. Then moving along, we get up to 2018. Again, on the port side, the port understanding that the port had an obligation to provide funding to put the infrastructure out there as well in the business park to try to help that happen. In 2018, then Governor Kate Brown approached the port and said, and this came in the wake of her, if you're familiar at all with that, she had pulled the plug essentially on the Nestle Waters project, where she had directed her state agencies to stop the permitting process. She didn't want to go down that road. But then she came to the board and said, I really want to help you guys out. What can I do to help you provide some economic growth to your community? So that was the question. The answer was, well, we need an infrastructure in the business park. So what she did then was she included a request for $2.4 million to be in her governor's recommended budget for the 2019 legislative session. I think we touched on that before. These would be funded with lottery bonds. So we had to work that hard, that 2019 session. We got the legislature to approve that funding. It was approved at the end of the session. The problem was COVID came. The bond sales didn't happen because pubs shut down, places of business shut down, people weren't buying lottery tickets, they weren't providing monies and so forth. So the bond sales didn't happen in 2020 as anticipated, which meant we had to go back to legislature again in the 2021 session and make sure that we got that included again in that session. So it did, and the 2.4 million became law, and it actually is contained now in ORS 777, which, as you all know, is the statute that talks about ports and so forth. So I think this is in your packet or included in the, this maybe in your kid or did it not? I sent it to you the other day.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, all right, anyway. Now I can pass this around, you can look at it. So anyway, section 20 is, the title is lottery bonds for the Fort Cascade Locks. So essentially it talks about there's $2.4 million in proceeds set apart for distribution to the Port of Cascade Locks to construct buildings and upgrade and expand infrastructure in the Port of Cascade Locks Business Park. And I point that out because it's very important that you understand that those $2.4 million in lottery bonds are earmarked and can only be expended in the business park. They can't be used elsewhere within the city or within.
So we could use it on your access.
They could be used for buildings and infrastructure in the business park. So that's kind of broad, but it's geographically kind of limited.
Right, I was just saying, but we don't have a tenant yet and have payments being made, so. It's something we need to consider.
That's the commission's discretion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I can see them.
So I want to make that clear. So beginning earlier this year, over the course of the past year in 2023, the Port of the City have had numerous conversations with PKI, these are the engineers who the city has, who brought in to help engineer the system upgrades that are contained in the EDA grant. The port has had conversations directly with them about how the port could build out the infrastructure needed in the business park to make sure that all the business park is served with adequate power capacity. Because right now, I think you're probably aware of this, but you know, that northern portion of the business park, its own resort that has a lot of potential, doesn't have power access to it yet. As well as the other portions going out, I don't, Aaron, you're here, you can kind of on this, or we'll let you talk there if you want, but my understanding is I don't think we actually have power in the ground out there on that east end of the park either, is that correct?
That is my understanding as well, is basically there's no power east of Cramlet
There
Way.
you go.
And the power in Cramlet Way is limited to the feed that comes under the railroad. Basically serves as streetlights and such, they're on Cramlet Way.
Perfect, thanks.
There is conduit and some older balls, to the east of Cramlet Way.
Okay. All right, so that's, so a new IDA proposal has been discussed with the city, nothing's been formally done or acted on yet, but I do want to point out that the city and Fort have had some casual conversations about this. And in this IDA, contains very much the same kind of language that was in the 2013 edition. The difference being in here is that there's more specificity regarding the city's responsibilities, i.e., at least again, this is what's been proposed. It's focused on the city building out and completing the scope of work contained in the grant that they received. So the city agrees to provide adequate electricity service to the port and industrial property through upgrades to the city substation and conduits leading to the property line to develop business, while still providing adequate electricity for commercial, residential development within the city. The city will achieve this by completing the projects funded by the Economic Development Administration grant and with match funds contributed by the city and the port. So it's just an acknowledgement there of what has been fleshed out before, what has been discussed before. But again, that we would be continuing to move forward with the city doing everything they can on their side of the meter, so to speak, and then the port doing what it can to try to help provide for the infrastructure in the park itself. They can receive the city that will, the service that will come from the city. So the problem that's popped up, of course, and this isn't a new one to the commission because we've seen it happen on some port projects. But of course, inflation has had a key role in being able to afford everything that was contained in that grant application. So costs are going up. The grant, as it was originally proposed, does not appear to be enough to handle everything that it was designed to initially. So Jordan brought to the port, you'll recall a few meetings back, a proposal that included port funding to actually share in the cost for the upgrades throughout the whole system, not just in the business part. And as I recall, it added up to somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.5 million, if I want to. 2.1.
In the request for you guys, yeah, just number two.
So that's been proposed. I would just point out again, and this is why I brought it up, that I think if it would be the commission's intent to use just the $2.4 million available in lottery funds that the port has available, it would be problematic to share in those costs for the whole city, because as I pointed out, those lottery bonds are earmarked just for your infrastructure and building development within the business side. So that's basically what I wanted to share with you. Happy to answer any questions. I know I went through a lot of stuff here in a short period of time.
We packed that one out.
Which one?
That one right there.
This one? They have this one. The 2013. It's only up to 20.
Okay. 2013.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they. Well, here we go. Here's that.
I think they have that.
Yeah, it's not
I
stated,
think,
January 6th,
yes,
yeah, they had it.
they have that, okay. All right, well, with that, I know Guy Holton from next, pardon me, sorry, from EKI is on the phone. He has this document that I think we arrived somewhere in your neighborhood recently. It's on the table in front of you. He'd be happy to walk you through this and to see, we asked him to come back with a proposal that's targeted expressly towards the port needs for the business park. So that's what he's here to talk to you about. He was going to be here in person, but he's here remotely. So Guy, I'll let you go ahead and share what you can from wherever you're at.
And I am not sitting out on the Palouse. Okay. I'm sitting in a car in a parking lot somewhere in Portland. So I did leave with enough, what I thought was enough time to get through the traffic, but so I apologize for that. The intention was to be there in person. So if I could share my screen with you. I could walk you through the document, but I'll need to have the host. Okay, there we go. So my conversation with Mark a week or two ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, was to take care of projects that were on port property. And so this has been refined. And what you see is the refining work. That would be this black line here and the red lines through the business park. And everything else is the total project that we originally had in mind with the BPA substation, the hardening across, then a double circuit along this blue line. And then this would be the new port feed here. And then this would be a double circuit such that if this circuit or the main circuit went down, we could swing the port over to this yellow line and continue to feed the port. So that was the basic idea with that. And the pricing that I changed here is it's quite expensive. It has jumped up. Pricing on materials has skyrocketed. Supply chain has been difficult to say the least. I am talking to folks who are saying conductor is a year and a half out. So this is a million or the 1000 MCM that you're seeing here. You know, we could be a year and a half out on that. So there are some significant challenges to get this done. And so what you see here, this is the cost for that's red circuit. And it's an estimated cost. And this is for that green or that black dashed line. This is the cost for that piece of it.
I'm sorry,
Now-
when you said this, I did not see what you were pointing at. You said
Okay.
this was the.
Can you see my
cost.
cursor?
Barely, could we zoom in on that at all?
Yeah, I think your mouse cursor is a little small. There you go. I think you can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
These are
let me
marked
see if
here
I
on the
can.
screen.
All right, let me zoom in on this.
Yeah, I guess I lost you when you said this cost. I didn't know which line
Yeah,
you were
so-
referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, so the red,
Okay,
the red circuits here, this is inside the business park. Okay, and I'm not sure where the actual property line is, but Mark and I talked about this being inside the business park as well. This is a single circuit running down along the parallel with the railroad tracks and then goes underground somewhere at this point.
Okay.
And this is connected to a double circuit line here. So one line goes this way, one line goes this way. Now, see here.
Hmm.
See if I can. And what you're seeing here is the my estimate for doing the underground in the business park. Now, this says 29.1 megawatt of load option. And some cost savings can be made if we only pull one circuit, which would be about 14.6 megawatts. And this then is the cost of the overhead circuit from where it crosses the street and the railroad crossing down to where it goes underground. And again, some cost savings can be made on the conductor pulling one three-phase set, which then would be 14.6 megawatts. And this kind of goes through what goes into it. Oh boy. This is not so good. And I put some of these parts in here so you could understand the significance of this. This is called a T-body connection, which goes on to the end of 1,000 MCM cable. These are running about $500 a piece. So electric system parts are extremely expensive. And then when you take a look at what would be mounted at the junctions, would be similar to this. This is a piece of switchgear with protection in it. I'm not really feeling like this is necessary due to the length of the circuit itself. So, and these vary in price and depend on where you get them. And there are some used ones on the market where we can save dollars if necessary. So that's pretty much the proposal and the refinement of it. And I wasn't going to go into too much of the total Cascade Locks project unless there are questions.
Yes, I have a question. On the map we're looking at right there, it has that red line basically just completely surrounding the Flex 6 building. How much of this design was made because of the Roundhouse project that's no longer moving forward? Is that like a design that was there to support like a big load for Flex 6 or?
No, no. The desire was for a loop. And that's what was asked, because this building is actually fed from over here and it comes down, and I think the pads are right here, and there is no connection here. Okay. So the desire of having a loop would then add this stretch of cable through here and make a junction at this point. Now, the idea is that when a new customer comes in, you'll have junction boxes here at each corner, and then the client would be responsible to connect and pay for their own hookup.
So that would get us power to the east side where the disc golf course is. Okay, but it doesn't go any further north where we want it to go. Yeah.
And that is the case. And let's see if I can pop this up here real quick. And I need to do this.
Well, and because Flex 6 or the Roundhouse project was talking about using all that power for and taking the land where the disc golf course is for expansion, that's why I feel like this was specifically set up to provide them a lot of power.
When was this design created?
Could you repeat that question? You're breaking up a little bit.
When was the design created?
Oh, good Lord. Boy, this was way back in, I think I did some initial work in 18. So I did the initial work with Gordon back in 18, 19, somewhere in that area. Now, can you see the map that I've got up there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same one that we were looking at.
Oh, yeah. It's the same one as the first page of the document we received.
Just
Yes.
zoomed in.
Yep. And so when Gordon and I originally talked about what he wanted to do, he wanted to come down this path here. And I don't know if you can see my cursor very well.
What area are you pointing at?
Are you on the north or south side of 84? Where are you?
What is this, Gramblet Way?
Okay, yeah, you might need to zoom out in order to see it.
Is that better?
Oh, now I can see
I
it,
can see it,
cursor.
yeah.
Okay, along this street, Gordon wanted to come down to this pad down here and then come along this path all the way up to the point and come back here. That is a substantial cost increase. So the intent of doing it with this red as described would allow you to have a loop to feed the existing business park, allow energization of this area here and the golf course. And if the north of this needed to be developed, that would be done in conjunction with the client who had desire to be out there. But when we took a look at the numbers, it was substantial.
Okay, and the map that we're looking at, the red line and everything, that can be, that would be the same regardless if we went with a 14.6 versus 29 megawatt option.
Yes, so when you take a look at the proposal, you will see there's 7 vaults, and that would be at each corner here. And those vaults are connected by conduit. And conduit is relatively cheap, and you're digging anyways, and you could put in 4 sets of conduit to carry the conductor. And at a later time, you could come back in and pull additional cable to get you up to the 29.1 megawatts. So and that is that megawatt limit is due to the current carrying capacity of the cable and the D rate for being in conduit. So that's the limiting factor, why it's 14.6 and 29.1.
I have a question about the overhead lines. The only overhead lines are just that area by the railroad crossing and the box there.
This black or green line, I can't tell which it is here. This line here, that is overhead.
Okay.
And
And what about that blue dotted line that goes over 84? Is that underground?
this blue dotted line will be a double circuit overhead.
Overhead? Okay.
Yes. Now, this green dotted line is also double circuit overhead as well, but this designates the steel poles, the hardened construction over the freeway. The existing 115 kV line, which is right here and comes across, would be removed.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then as far as the property that you're looking at, that big yard, Dennis Schneider property, there's a current transformer there right now, right?
That's correct.
And how would that change if we upgrade to the 29 megawatt? What
Well,
would change on this property?
So the intent was not to upgrade this transformer. Okay, the intent was to replace this transformer. this is a wasted asset. This transformer here is 6 MVA. It's old. It's not, it's just barely worth the iron that's in it. So the intent was to purchase a used transformer, a larger transformer, which we've looked at a couple different ones. Put that transformer here, and then in my recommendation was to move this transformer and put it right here up to the next to the other one. You eliminate.
I couldn't see where you're pointing at on the map again.
Okay. Yeah. Let me see if I can.
Moving the one that's on Snyder's property now, which we call the pyramid, it would move it up in conjunction to BPA location, was the original
This
intent.
one here would go here,
Okay,
and then we put a new one here.
okay, and then, is there like a easement agreement with the city and Dennis Schneider?
Yes, there is.
Okay, now continue after all this, obviously.
Yeah, that didn't change.
Okay.
Yeah, and
All right.
we looked at several different options. We looked at building a line around the property. We looked at going underground, under the freeway. That alone was a little over $1 million. Just to go, couple hundred feet. And so that seemed unreasonable. So what we came up with was moving the transformer up here, consolidating, getting rid of this property. And Jordan, are you leasing this spot here? I mean, I don't know how much you're paying for it.
We don't pay anything for it.
Okay. And because I was asked, what are the advantages of moving the transformer across the street? I am not thrilled with the way this transformer pad was designed. I think it could pose you legal issues down the road, which is one of the reasons why I want to move this up in this area. So that's one of the things that I would like to address. And I've gone back and done some research, and it was indicated to me that this pad, when it was built, and this was designed by BKI, it was not built as designed. So it has some issues. That just became apparent to me within the last 6 months. I mean, so when I saw some of that, that was another reason to move it. I'm not a fan of having two substations 300 feet from each other. I think for maintenance reasons, security reasons, having your equipment in the single substation is a much better idea. And then you're not having to access this yard all the time, Dennis's yard all the time. So there's some issues there that should be dealt with. If the city chooses not to do that, then a single transformer would come up to here. And then we would rebuild the line across a double circuit, or a single circuit. We'd rebuild it with steel pole. This 115 kV line is a great big line, would stay the same. And then we'd build the double circuit like this over here and continue. So there's some options that the city can do to save a little money, to stretch things a little bit. And it's always a balance between, reliability, security, and economics. What you're willing to live with. And that's kind of up to the city. And I believe I provided the city with an options document that goes through and shows the different options that they can choose from.
Options document.
Yeah.
I have not seen that.
Cause one thing I'm noticing in the packet we received, well, a couple things. The first one is when you went over the business park load option for the 29.1, our document shows like it's 1.094 million. Your document on the screen showed 1.3. So our pricing is, we're not looking at the same sheets. And secondly, I would like to see an option or to see the pricing for the 14.6 so we can kind of do a comparison as well to see what kind of price savings we'd get if we went for the 14.6. And I don't see that anywhere in our packet.
How much was this, or how long ago was these dollar amounts quoted?
You have a document here that goes back to April initially, and that's, I think, the biggest difference between the price you quoted and from 1 point whatever to 1.3.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've had some, what's the inflation factor been on projects this year? We, 20%? So it's been significant, correct?
On the further down set of equations.
There's the 20% contingency on the bottom of the budget there too.
Oh,
So that's included in the 1.0.
And it doesn't show units,
Yeah.
it just shows quantity, so we don't know what the units actually are.
Right, that's why I would like to also see that 14.6 megawatt option.
He's prepared
And it
that.
was pointing out items that
Single cable, double cable.
There's a,
might not be necessary.
this is an April document here, you've got on the screen now.
So this is the document I provided in April of 23. The document that we were looking at is, I tweaked those numbers today. And the numbers are very hard to come up with because the equipment is so hard to get that the manufacturers, they don't post their prices anymore. It's very hard to get them to give you a quote unless you're ready to put money down. So it's gotten very difficult and very expensive to take a look at this stuff.
Is this in regards to used equipment or just all equipment?
All equipment. It's gotten to the point now where the equipment, if you find a good price, I found this today. So this goes on the end of a cable, and you can see, and in the quotation that I adjusted today, I used $400. This is one manufacturer who actually posted it, was $500. So and I looked at several sites trying to refine the costs, and unfortunately, and I've talked to people about the 1000 MCM, and I'm getting a 1.5 year lead time on it, anywhere from $40 to $46 a foot. So it is a difficult situation. And when you take a look at these costs that I put put together in April, we were still having some of these issues. Although I was able to get some manufacturers to chime in on me that time, but the situation has gotten worse. And so this document here was created for the total Cascade Locks and port project. Now, I don't think I provided this other one.
I guess while you're bringing that up, Guy, I just want to make sure that I'm fully following some of these drawings. Is for the double circuit, is that the reason we have the orange and the red line, and we basically go around both of the areas that already have electricity?
No, the the colors were chosen to show the different, how I broke the projects up. Okay, so for instance, the Cascade Locks purchased the substation. Then that was a project where there's some things that we need to do there. Replace the transformer, update the recloser, and then harden, the green is then harden the circuit over I-84. And then this
I guess my,
the teal color is a double circuit now.
yeah,
One carrying the port circuit, and you're not seeing my cursor.
Yeah.
I am,
we see
yes,
it, yeah.
thank you.
So, and you can see in the key here, what I listed the projects as. And
Right, I guess my question is more around that orange line.
okay,
Is that bringing energy to anyone other than making a loop?
Mhm. Let's see.
yes, this is one of the main feeders. So the city is fed by this. This comes on here like this, and then
Okay.
goes on.
Yeah, it goes on to the west for the city.
To sell the
Got
power.
it.
Gotcha.
That one is, scheduled to be just a Porter Cascade
US
Locks.
Cellular is the customer of that as well.
Okay. Okay, and then so that line that goes across Columbia Gorge Way, up there, exactly, that red line, that's just to basically create a loop around the area.
So this comes underground and comes down here and feeds this transformer right here.
Okay. And then so
Okay.
that would help to bring additional electricity to Flex 6.
Hey, guy. Does that
Yes.
yellow line already exist?
This orange line here.
Okay,
Orange.
Yes, this
that already
this
exists.
is a single phase circuit. Yes,
That already exists. And then the first part of the red line that goes halfway down Columbia Gorge Way to that transformer, that line already exists.
that exists as well. That's underground. And I
And it's
misspoke. This is a three-phase circuit, but it's one one three-phase circuit. And yeah, so it comes to this point, comes underground, comes down to this transformer and ends here and feeds this building. And
According to the letter, though, it says it's strictly a Porter Cascade Box as the exclusive benefactor for 3 of the projects, including the west entrance to BP 29 megawatt load option. And when you look at the map, that west entrance 29 megawatt load option is the orange line. So it's saying we're the exclusive benefactor, and in the quote, it shows us being the exclusive ones paying for it. However, it looks like the city is going to benefit from that upgrade as well. Just pointing out.
So, yeah.
I'm not sure I caught all that.
That's not up to, that's not Guy's thing. I think he's here to explain the map to us and the prices, but could you bring up that map again? I just want to make sure I'm understanding
Can you go back to the
exactly
map,
what we're getting.
okay?
all right, do you need me to zoom in?
How it's broken out.
So guy, the orange line is that would not just serve the port, that's gonna serve the port and the rest of the city system, is that correct?
It serves both the port and the city.
Okay,
Okay. Now, my intent with this project was to make this a double circuit line to this point. Okay. And then it could be connected here to make the loop. So it would get, actually, if I remember correctly, it would actually get upgraded to carry the full load so that it could be switched.
Okay.
I'd have to
So
go back.
really,
So it does say the 29.1 megawatt load option for the west entrance, so that one overhead line will carry all of the 29 megawatt load. Now, with the 14 megawatt load, is that then, a lighter cable or just, what is the difference there?
Let's see if I can find that for you.
Yeah, I was looking at the pricing difference between 14 and 29 megawatts. Was about $500,000. I'm trying to figure out what was the biggest driver of extra cost there, material wise.
Yeah, people line materials. You'll have the same number of bolts in the ground and so forth, it's gonna be the material.
Just cabling.
I believe so.
So that we would be the exclusive manufacturer of those. Everything on, like I said, it'd be the east end, those 6 new transformers, or what are they called? Vaults. And 3 would be on Cranbrook Way on the east side. 2 of them would specifically be right where the disc golf course is at. The 3rd one would be at the end of the disc golf course. And if another business comes in there, they would need to pay for the power line to come from there.
System development
So-
charge or whatever. Yeah.
According to the proposal, the email I'm reading, which doesn't seem to be attached here, but the black dotted line, the orange line, and the red line are exclusive to Cascade, or to port of Cascade blocks. Even though it doesn't, now we're learning that the orange line is not actually exclusive to us,
Right.
but in the proposal, it shows us exclusively paying for those. And then the blue dotted line and the green dotted line, and the substation would be shared with the city.
Gotcha.
But I feel like we should probably share the orange line too.
Should clarify that a little bit more. Yeah.
Right.
What is current capacity into the business park, Guy?
The current capacity, I
So-
don't know off the top of my head. I'm not sure. what that-
11.
I think it,
Because-
previous reports said like 14,
Currently it's working.
I believe that that's.
I just wanna make sure that we understand what we're purchasing here, right?
Exactly, that's exactly what I mean.
What am I getting? So right now I have enough power to go into the business park to power Bear Mountain, that's not us, but it's getting power into there. It's Flex 6 is getting power, Stream is getting power. So the question sort of becomes, what are we paying for that we envision that we're going to need for the development of that business park? There's still a bit of a question mark for us, because we're not even sure what we're doing for that business park, right? So what do I have that goes out to that business park now that I can work with? And what am I getting for this additional money? Like, what did we gain? Did we gain the ability to bring in larger manufacturers? Well, clearly, I'm sure we did. Are we looking to bring in larger manufacturers? I'm not sure we are. Do I want to put a campground out there? Do I have enough to put a campground out there? Does this give me my hotel? It doesn't. So we need to get us close to that hotel. So some of the detail, when we start to talk about.
So the current
14
single
starting
phase,
right?
the current single phase line is already at 14. So so basically this has us upgrading our 14 megawatt line, the orange line 229, and that's a lot of primary cost for that.
If I could interrupt or add, Jordan had presented a PowerPoint presentation to the commission in September 5th. And in there was a sheet that was included. Basically, it states that the city's current substation is capable, has a 14 megawatt capacity. And that the lines at the industrial park can handle 13 megawatts. So maybe that gives kind of Guy, is that
Thank you for that.
correct?
I'm not sure. To be honest with you, I'd have to go back and look at this wire. So I don't know if you can see my cursor here.
Is it the orange one?
Right in front of the private owner. Don't remember his name here. This comes down, it comes down here, and it comes underground. And that's your electric service to this side of the business park. Now, this wire comes across here like this.
Guy, we can't see your cursor. Would you be able to use descriptive words, like just say the blue teal line and, down or up or whatever? We just can't see your cursor, so it's kind of hard to follow you when you just say this line.
sorry. Um, well, this would be the blue dashed line here. And
Okay.
when it reaches the junction of the black dashed, which then
Okay.
goes, which goes east, and then the
Yeah.
orange line that goes west, it goes west and then turns north,
Mhm.
and it goes up to the end of the west end of the building and the cul-de-sac in that area. That orange line, had I continued to draw it, would continue north um, towards the edge of the river, and then it turns and goes west across the creek, and then feeds that the Herman Creek Business Complex in that
Okay.
area. And then it continues on. So that orange circuit does feed the city. It's not exclusive. Now, we had talked about making it a double circuit, making it a loop, but the more cost efficient is putting a connection here, a disconnect, so that if the other feed, which would be the black or green dashed line, if we lost that feed, you would send somebody out to close this switch and pick it up with pick up the load with the other feeder at what you would see the end of the um, orange line. So right where the orange and the red line meet. That would
So
be,
at what instance would that become necessary? I mean, I see the power outages that we've had in town, when we have power outages, pretty much most of the time, it's the whole town, because it's, Bonneville.
EPA.
But we have very little instances where I think that type of redundancy for the expense might be, justified.
Not yet,
Just,
Not yet.
not yet, we're not in a place.
it's not yet, maybe someday.
Yeah,
and
I guess the question that, I guess, I don't know if anyone else has this, but if we're currently at 13.6, we're rerunning all of that orange line to be 14.9 or 29, I'm sorry.
You'll have to ask Guy.
Oh, I was looking at you, I was asking a question, I apologize.
and I believe I recommended that the orange line be upgraded to a 1272, which would carry the full 14.6 or the 29 megawatts. And that would allow it to feed the business park and the city at the same time.
Conceivably, that orange line, then when it extends out, would also feed the gravel pit, the gravel pit area, which I think, didn't, Soros, didn't he buy it? Huh?
Bob Sir on that.
Yeah, so anyway,
So I guess what the reason I was asking about the 14.6 is that we're at 13 there. Are we benefiting at all to do 14? We might as well do 29.
I feel 29 is the better option because
Yeah.
it's only $500,000 more
Exactly.
and you're future proofing for,
Exactly,
development in the business park.
right.
So-
I guess that's what it's kind of getting at.
Because labor costs are only gonna go up, as time goes on, it's not
I
going
think,
down, so.
the one option we talked about was, putting in conduit, but not pulling wire, and might be a considerable savings. Now, I know we got red lines, we have the, faults and things on both sides of Cranbrook Way. Is it Cranbrook Way, or is that?
Yeah.
I guess we could conceivably have businesses on both sides there, and I'm just wondering about good idea to have it running running circuits on both sides or?
Well, and if I could ask, the businesses on the west side of Cramlett Way are already developed. Basically,
That was my point.
the east end of Block 6
We're running,
or Flex 6.
we're running stuff there that, we don't know that we need to run both sides of the street if the businesses are already being fed and developed on the west side of Crown Way. So we may only need the one on the east side.
Yeah, I guess that was my question is why are we doing basically that big loop around where there's already electricity and then the other loops just on the
The
street?
lines have to be.
We were buying, we're buying a lot of redundancy in it.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Well,
So anytime you have a cable fault, you want to be able to disconnect it and then continue service. So on the parallel circuits there, if you had a cable fault, you could disconnect the faulted cable and then continue to maintain service. Now, cable faults typically happen as the cables age. So, and with cables being in conduit, that helps protect them. So is that risk high? No, it's not a high probability. When I did the design walkthrough with Gordon and walkthrough with Derek, the desire was to have vaults on both sides of the street. That was a decision on Gordon and Derek's recommendations such that they could feed the east side fairly easy. And at that point, a client coming in would then be responsible to pay for the connection to the vault, the primary metering cabinet, and then anything on his piece of property, how he wants to connect it. That was the intent of the design.
Guy, could you talk just a little bit about how the system could be designed to enable the port to, let's just say, recoup some transmission fees to its customers, either current or future? As we talk about, the port puts a lot of money in infrastructure, how they can regain some of that in a sustainable way, just to pay for costs and have a source of revenue.
Yeah, so when you have a client in your service territory, typically, as does the city, well, they have what's called a primary metering cabinet. And that primary metering cabinet, it has PTs and CTs in it, which measure voltages and currents very accurately. And then you have a revenue meter attached to the metering cabinet. And what that allows is you to charge according to that revenue meter. And at that point, if you're buying energy from Cascade Locks, the city, and you could put an extra tariff. And I'm not a revenue guy. Okay, so this is just me thinking out loud here, that you could put an extra tariff on that power charge and earn some additional revenue back. As far as the legalities of that, that's something that you and the city would have to work out. One of the suggestions that I had mentioned is if that the had a what we call an express feeder, which means that up at the up at the Bonneville substation, there would be a closer up here with a meter in the circuit, and the circuit would feed only the business park. And then you would collect your revenue. You would see what's going out to each individual, or what the whole feeder is loaded at. You could have a and that's how you would pay the city, is what's on your feeder, and then you could figure out how to charge your equal tariffs to your clients. So there's a number of different ways to collect some revenue on this, and to earn some money back. But again, that's the rates and revenue. That's the legal side of that is outside of my purview. And that's something you'd have to talk to attorneys and negotiate with the city.
Going back to the map, the line that goes from the red line that goes from the orange back to Cranbrook Way, other than feeding Flex 6, or that big building up there, are there any additional benefits that we get out of having that?
It also feeds the frame building, and there was a provision to go across the road to feed the Hoyker property to the north as well.
Yeah.
So it has multiple
It does.
So the dotted dark green or black line, though, is strictly for sake of redundancy and creating that loop.
The black dashed line is
Yeah.
what I would consider the main feed to the business park. And it would flow in this way and then be built around. And this would be just a switch for redundancy. And then this conductor, the orange conductor, then is backup feed for the port. But you would have to rebuild the capacity of this line to be able to carry the backup load
That will be backup in case it's needed, right? So.
in case it's needed. Now, you could say, what is my exposure? And that would be a really great question. The exposure for something like that, if something in this area, in the green dash lined area, the pole gets knocked down, then at this,
Guys, do you mind saying that again? You cut out there for a couple seconds.
okay. The idea is reliability. Your exposure is this overhead line section here, the green dashed line, which is the here. And
Yeah.
also your exposure is the light turquoise line,
Right.
as well as the lime green line across the freeway.
Basically all the overhead stuff.
So that's, yes, all the overhead stuff is exposure. So a broken insulator, a squirrel in the line, a bird in the line, a tree limb that falls in. So that is your exposure. Now, this is in most vernacular, this is not a long feeder. So your risk is lower than most normal distribution circuits in a utility. So your risk is lower. So if you chose not to do that and not want to upgrade the orange line to carry it, do I see that as a huge risk? The answer is no.
Okay.
Now, the intent here, when you had that internet service provider looking at going into the north building there, they wanted extremely reliable power. Okay, and
And we've
that,
got somebody who's fitting a lot of the bill, that makes it much easier to design those things into be bulletproof. Gotcha.
it's essentially an over design. I don't want to call it an over design. It's a good redundant design. But you know, anytime you're balancing security and reliability and redundancy, when you have those higher levels, it costs more, just because of the infrastructure that you're putting in.
Right. Could you remind me at current design, what we're seeing right here, what is that grand total?
It's
Is it
about
3?
1.3 for, well, just the porch portion or the whole system?
Everything.
Everything. All right, I'll let you take it from there, guy. 3 point. I think it's 3.
Is that, yeah, I don't have it in this paperwork that I have here.
It's
3.5, something like that.
yeah, I think you're correct. I think it's somewhere in there.
The overall project cost is right here on the agenda, it says 5.710, and that was like. April cost.
They have that $2.2 million grant or whatever they're getting.
Okay.
So it's around 3 something, 3 1.
Okay.
5.71, our portion was 2.44 back in April. And the city's portion is 3.26 back in April. Imagine all of those costs have risen.
Now, the cost that you're talking about, Jordan, you said there's an expiring grant in the summer.
Inflation is down.
Expiring grant?
Yeah, there was a grant that we have to use the funds by a certain,
That's July for us, that's the 2.4 that we have.
2.4, okay.
2.4.
2.4 goes into 25 for us.
Oh, 2.5, oh, even better.
It's the ARPA money is, July 30th, 24.
Okay, okay,
Or June 30th, right?
June 30th, okay.
Yeah.
So grand total, 5.7. There's 2.2 grant that the city currently has, right?
It's actually 3 if you add up the matches, right?
Right.
It's 3 million for roughly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so out of that 2.7 that's remaining. There we go.
Now, one of the things that I do want to point out is this contingency fund. Okay, so there's always unknowns in a project.
Management reserve.
And then you break it into
And-
parts, so we had, we're not involved with that. The only thing we're involved with is this one.
Okay.
That one right there,
Yeah, and that's what's in here.
and then, well, the other thing you saw there.
Right.
I saw the comparison between 14 and 20, it's only a $400,000 difference.
Okay.
So.
So then this is looking like it's 1.5 for us then, with these numbers.
Yeah.
That would be super helpful to have a spreadsheet that shows the side by side comparison of our options.
Yeah, because I think we're seeing confusion between what's city covered and what's port total costs, so. It'd be
Yeah,
nice to see it all like kind of summarized like that. I have an off-topic question, just this new infrastructure, what's the life of use for the substation and all the wiring, like a couple decades or what,
20 years,
20 years?
at least the life of the grant that the city receives 20 years.
Okay, and that used power substation is guaranteed for 20?
Oh, yes, yeah, I mean, the current one there is 80 years old, I mean, we maintain them, they will last a very long time.
Or the wiring, and that's when stuff in the concrete. Saying last week, no longer,
Yeah,
so
it's really just a substation that kind of goes for a
as
second.
long as we're gonna have to worry about it.
Yeah. Guy, could you talk about the pyramid substation and the potential to boost the transmission out of that? I be boosted too for the city.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking me, about pyramid and what could be done to boost the,
Correct.
energy out of pyramid. To be honest with you, pyramid is like putting a transformer on a postage stamp. Okay. Um, it's already, what I consider to be extremely small. And the one thing about transformers, they're very expensive, and it is, um, it's really important to protect them. And when you protect a transformer, you, should use something better than a fuse. And this current transformer, is fused. My personal rule of thumbs is anything under IMVA should have differential protection and a circuit switcher. Um, if you have a transformer that has an issue and you have good sensitive differential protection, you can isolate that transformer and it can be repaired. Usually if a transformer has a internal short, a fuse will take its time to clear, and it will allow more damage to occur beyond the point where it no longer becomes economically feasible to repair. So in the risk of fire and an explosive event, those have happened before. So I I would highly recommend not upgrading the pyramid transformer to a larger transformer. I think you could leave it there, but I would not recommend doing, not upgrading that transformer. If you're looking to add a larger transformer, the spot to do it is the BPA substation on the south of the highway. You have plenty of room there, good connection to the 115. And that would be the better way to do that. So I'm not a fan of the pyramid substation. I've seen people do this. I have another client who has done exactly the same thing, a BPA substation, and then 300 feet away, they have their city substation, and I know BPA is kind of hard to deal with, and sometimes it makes sense to do that, but from a um, from a planning engineer, which is some of the work that I've done, it makes no sense to me to do it that way. For maintenance and security, and switching, uh, it makes more sense to have your stuff in one yard. And the fact here that the foundation is not a great foundation for the transformer. There's just too many negatives that start piling up, to do anything with pyramid.
And here, so we can.
So then would your recommendation be to change out some of
I think
the drawings that we currently have
underground gets a lot more.
and some of the plan that's currently underway? Or at least that we're discussing?
Sorry.
Similar to the pricing.
Um,
14
And I'm not
megawatts.
sure I caught the
From
gist of your
big
question.
inverter, so all the way down
Um,
there, it's about the same amount of cable. So if you look at this.
So I guess it sounds like you were previously saying that there's some things that you probably wouldn't do.
Yes.
So with that, statement, my question is, what would you change on this? And how would that affect anything that we see in front of us?
So, moving the transformer, across, uh, and one of the suggestions that I had, that I recommended, was that the pyramid transformer get moved south,
Distance.
into the BPA substation,
Use
as well as the recloser, which is the switching device.
32
And
of cable.
then I would
That's the
put a
most
circuit
expensive cost
switcher
driver.
in the BPA
And that
substation
goes-
for that transformer. It gives you protection. Your equipment in 1 yard, and it eliminates the pyramid station completely. And you're just moving the equipment. The equipment there at Pyramid was put in, I believe it was 2012, 2013, somewhere in that area. So the equipment is
0.9
usable.
watts, which I think is the best way to go, but maybe 7,000.
You're right next to the mic, so he's probably hearing you guys talk right there.
Okay, so it sounds like, you don't suggest that we upgrade that transformer from Pyramid, but simply move it and, consolidate it in with the, BPA substation?
That is correct. So a transformer, if you look on the nameplate, it has 3 ratings in it. And they have a self-cooled rating, and then 2 stages of fans. So in this particular case, I think it's 12, 16, and 20. So if we put 2 stages of fans on that existing transformer, your capacity goes from 12 megawatts to 20.
And that's better than, upgrading that transformer, making it larger. As you said, there's problems, with that.
Foundation.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm looking at this, and I go, by putting 2 stages of fans on this, you get 8 megawatts.
Okay.
And
So-
now, could that be done where it's absolutely?
So something you do at a later date if,
you know,
we deem it necessary and we start drawing that much energy.
So the city does.
Right. Correct.
right. So the city is using, your total load is 7 megawatts peak. And when I look at this, you've got 12 with self-cooled. So you've got 5 megawatts of reserve, put 2 stages of fans on it. Now you've got 13 megawatts. So, I mean, this could be, you could do this in a long-term project. Most utilities like to have 2 transformers to serve their load in case of an outage on one of the transformers. And again, outages on transformers are a rare event. They do happen. So this is really risk management. Okay, you're looking at the reliability of the transformer. And typically when we take a look at reliability of transformers, we look at the age, and then periodically, and some people do it every year, some people do it every 2 years, they test the oil. Okay, and oil is a good indicator of the health of your transformer. And so this is not a clear cut science. It's always a balance of security, reliability, and economics. You know, where your comfort level is with the equipment, how it's been installed, how it's been maintained. And that really is the bottom line, and how well you monitor it. So a utility who has good monitoring, good maintenance practices, uh, can operate at a lower risk or a higher risk level and get away with it. So it is um, uh, a decision not lightly to be made. And I've tried to do my guidance with the experience that I've had over my years of experience doing this kind of stuff.
Well, I appreciate this presentation and I've definitely learned a lot. I am also a very visually organized person and would, in order to make any kind of decision on this, would need to see our options on like an Excel spreadsheet side by side and weighing out the pros and cons of each. I mean, if we only did the 14.6 megawatt upgrade, we already have 13 megawatts. I think the only benefit of that is bringing power across the street, it seems like. And do we need all 29 megawatts, and are those our only options? But also I need to see our port budget to see where else those funds can be used, because right now we have issues with finances on the Flex 6 building, and our current grant can be used partially for that, potentially to pay it down a little bit while we are looking for tenants to fill it. So there's a lot of missing information for me, and I would not feel comfortable moving forward with any kind of decision without that.
I don't think you were looking for a motion tonight, were you?
Okay, just
Yeah,
throwing
so,
that out there.
yeah, as you said, it's the comparing the double line, putting bulbs on both sides of the street, comparing 29 versus 14. And are there strategies that we could do as such as putting conduit in and not pulling wire, that could, bring this cost down, but there again, it's comparing side by side with, the different options. As you said, the risk is pretty low, even if we don't have the switching and the loop, in the system, as our, the lines overhead are pretty short and, pose, limited risk. As I believe most of where this picture and where these lines are run, there are no trees. It's not like up other parts of the utility where there's big trees to be blown over and that sort of thing. This is all pretty much cleared land, so not a big risk as far as windfall or other types of hazard.
I think another thing we need to consider is how much electric do we need for the future? How much, the entire city right now, right, Jordan, uses about 4.7 total on average. And that includes our current business park, but our current capacity for the business park is 13 megawatts already. So how much do we anticipate on expanding if we're really kind of?
Totally depends on the types of businesses we're talking
Right.
about. Are they gonna
Well,
be
and
high
I think we're ready
energy
for
uses, or are we
these.
talking about
I don't know.
more light
So I know
industrial?
things to think about.
Yeah,
Your two current businesses, Spring has, it's either 1200 amp or 1500 amp service, which with a power factor of 0.8, and it's 3-phase, it could use up to about 1 megawatt of power.
Right.
The Flex 6 building has a 2000 amp 480 volt service, 3-phase, and again, using a 0.8 power factor, could use up to about 1.33 megawatts. So between those two properties, which are, 9 acres of land or 8.5 acres of land, you're using roughly 2 1/3, or have the ability to use 2 1/3 megawatts.
which means we still got a reserve of about 10 with our current electrical structure.
If it is, and that probably would be a good question to have Guy verify, is what is the current capacity of the line serving the business park. I just, like I said, pulled this off of the presentation at just at 13 megawatts.
So the
Yeah,
20
I would ask Derek to go out and verify the conductor size of feeding both ends of the business park. And once I have the conductor size verified, usually I can, it's fairly easy to say this, it can carry so much amperage, and then I can back calculate the megawatts that you could get.
So the 29.1 though, would that only come to us or would that go to the city as well? And if we say no to the 29, we only do 14, does that limit the city as well? And I keep looking at you because you're right here, I apologize.
I think it makes capacity possible. I mean.
The
correct,
29.9, the 29.1 megawatts, what that is that's two three-phase circuits of 1,000 MCM. And now what limits your use, that 29 megawatts, you have to have a transformer that will source that. Okay, so if you tried to pull 29 megawatts from that existing transformer, that's not going to work. You're going to overheat the transformer, and then you're going to do bad things to the transformer. Now, I will say you cannot parallel the two existing transformers. So that 6 megawatt transformer up in the BPA yard, technically you can parallel it, but what happens is you will overheat the smaller transformer quicker. So
Yeah, I guess my question was more like, would we be limiting any of the megawatts that would be going to the city? If we, in the future, after we see the numbers decided 14 versus 29, that's my question.
Well, it's tough to direct megawatts, okay? It's hard to direct the flow unless you have branch circuits, okay? So if you had an express feeder to the business park, then you would feed exclusively the business park, and then the city would be on the other feeder. And then that load would be split according to the capability of the transformer. If you were under the second onan level, and basically that's a second stage of fans megawatt level, which is the highest level of a transformer. Say if we put two stages of fans on the pyramid transformer, that 20, depending on how that load would split, would be dependent upon the actual load connected on each feeder, because the transformer would try to feed, and if you're familiar with circuits, the lower resistive circuit's going to get the bulk of the energy, and that's the way that the electrons will flow. But can you
have wouldn't affect anyone other than us? Okay.
Can I ask why or how this project came about in the first place? Was there a need or a purpose for it?
Very much, I mean, the city needed a grant because if you ever were around Gordon Zimmerman, you'd ask him, well, how much power do we have? Well, you get out of back a napkin and say, well, at 35 degrees, we got this, at 85, it's this. So the city's been really margining just for their capacity. The supply need as it currently exists, and of course, that doesn't have anything to do with future use either. So that's what started the whole conversation about the system just needs an upgrade in hardening to make it more resilient, so it's not susceptible to ice storms like it currently could be, but also increase the capacity too. So I don't think that's Jordan would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, what's been told to me way before I got here is it was Gordon called the year of fire and ice, the Eagle Creek, and then the ice storm. And it really stretched in our system. So that's where this came from, is hardening and upgrading our system. And then at some point it morphed into an EDA grant to get power out to the park. How that switch happened, I don't know. But from my understanding, the conversation started as a result of that year of the Eagle Creek fire and that massive ice storm.
Well, with the existing, agreement between the city and the port to collaborate on infrastructure to supply the city and the port.
And you can't get an EDA grant if all you're doing is upgrading the transformer for the city to upgrade the city. But if you're creating economic development, such as our port industrial park, then you have the means to get the grant.
Yeah.
To be able to upgrade the transformer and everything as well, which helps the city as well as helps the ports.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think as citizens, like, I understand the importance of it, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, well, just like. Sounds like there's a whole bunch of redundancies, sounds like the costs, all of that, I'm still.
So, if we had a bottom, like things hadn't gone up by 25% and we would have from getting things and we had a bottomless budget, then this is a great plan, bulletproof, very reliable, best possible scenario. But things being what they are, we may have to decide to, rather than plan for the next 30 years, plan for the next 10 or limit the types of businesses that, we're limited to 14 megawatts out there for the time being because of cost and have to modify the design then.
I'm having a hard time with how it got, I guess. It was Jordan, he didn't know either, so never mind. My question was answered.
They'll have to dig through the city and port minutes, probably at least go back 5 years and see what the discussion is about EPA and all this other stuff. I can try to dig it up, but.
Well, it's not that, it's why the business park and not look at the whole city. It's looking at the
Well,
future.
it does to some degree serve the entire city because they're upgrading the transformer and everything else, which creates capacity and makes our city more reliable. And so in one way, it's just the industrial park, but they wouldn't have been able to get the grant if they just wanted to upgrade things for the city and not specifically for the industrial park. So
That's what I needed.
yeah, that's why it's economic development
Agency.
And it also works hand in hand, right? The city can grow if we can have more business.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Okay, that was my missing piece.
Yeah, I have one more technical question. For the 84 crossing, the wood and steel poles, like what's the height requirements for that type of stuff going over the freeway?
That would be dependent upon the conductor and the sag limits. And the crossing over the freeway will have some restrictions by ODOT. I do not know that off the top of my head. That is outside of my specialty.
So it'll probably be similar to what's out there. I think when you drive by the actual Eagle Creek, you can see some overhead power lines running over there. But I'm just curious because sometimes they have large cargo going through there. Obviously it wouldn't be higher than, it wouldn't be lower than the current bridge right now, but yeah, that's the only technical question I had. I do like the loop system you have here for the design. I think it makes sense and it looks like it's scalable the way it's laid out, where you could, when the opportunity presents itself, you could run a line out to Irving Creek, down Fisherman's Access Road or down Cramblett Way when you start developing out there, or the old proposed casino site. But this, this kind of makes sense where it's laid out. So thank you for explaining that for us.
One of the other factors that you want to keep in mind is there's about 16 or 17 acres of property out there that aren't owned by the port.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's going to happen out there. That's privately owned, used to be SDS property and so forth. don't know what that load would be, but if you've got power in place, they're gonna have to get it through the port's transmission capability. So it becomes another, like we were talking about, franchise fee or a tariff, however, I think Guy used that word, but it's another way for the port to be in place to supply a need and to be able to recoup some costs at that point in time too.
Actually, that could almost be a reimbursement district to where the capital cost that the port's outlined initially.
Exactly.
It would come in just monthly, but you know, of the 2.5 million, you know, maybe 40, do it on some type of pro rata share and, you know, 30% or 40% of that could be bought down by whoever developed that property.
Exactly.
Possible.
Well, I think for the time being, we've received all the information that, we just need to digest and discuss and figure out what our priorities are as far as, and, you know, compare that against our budget kind of, and
Like, I feel like we need to see options. Sounds like guys
I
said
think we
the
need-
city options. but we
yeah, I
didn't
think
see-
we need like a felt board with pieces of string for the line so that we can.
No, I'm serious. Sounds like he sent you options, but we didn't see any options, so I'd love to see what those are.
Right.
I guess the last question I have is, you know, say we come to some sort of agreement within the year 2023, what's the timeline look like, start to finish, for 29 megawatt service in the business park?
Wow. You're so, and I talked to one of OHOP Mutual, one of our former employees, and he was trying to get 750 MCM cable, and he's a year and a half out. So can we go offshore and get cable? Yes, we can. That might reduce some of the lead times. So anything, it's just so hard to tell, because what utilities have done, they saw this supply chain thing coming on, and orders are backed up everywhere. You can't get transformers, you can't get cable, you can't get, and the list is long. So my guess is, the longer you wait to make a decision, the longer the lead times. You need to get into a queue.
You think it's
So-
ballpark, like no more than 3 years at most?
For long lead items?
For the, not just to get the materials, but the completion of everything. Like up and running where, you know, commercial development come in and start building and stuff.
To do the business park and the dashed black line, you're probably talking, you know, a month or 2 months to do the actual work if you had materials on site.
So the
And-
biggest drawback is, or the thing that's holding everything back is just sourcing the cabling.
Yes, sourcing the cabling. The vaults and the cabinets are hard to get as well. I mean, you know, just the simple metering cabinets, you know, we're talking anywhere from 28 weeks is the earliest to 65 weeks. And so it's very frustrating for us to try to plan to do work, because a majority of our time is shifted from engineering to trying to track availability of equipment.
Yeah.
Okay. So Guy, couldn't the project be done to where you put in your vaults, you put in the conduit, and then you just pull the wire whenever it is available? So that all the in-ground, all that infrastructure is in the ground already, and you just pull the wire after the fact?
Yeah, and that's certainly doable. That first red section right from the west entrance of the business park, we'll have a little bit of conflict in that area with cable that's already in the ground. Is it doable? Yes, I think it's doable. Can we avoid conflict? I think so. It'll be a little bit of a delicate dance, but I think it's doable. So yes, and believe it or not, concrete vaults are hard to get these days as well. It's amazing. The supply chain has gone nuts. And it's
Yeah, and not to pile on, but I kind of need to because I'm at a conference where they were talking about issues related to all the federal funds that are coming out, and that there's $2.5 billion in grid resilience funding, and a lot of that money is going to go towards undergrounding. So know that if you're slow getting in line, it's going to get slower because there's a bunch of federal funds that are coming in with matching funds from utilities to be able to get access to this stuff.
Susan, Jeremiah, for the statement of work, there's exclusions for certain costs such as geotechnical, environmental, archaeological investigations, which the port is responsible to cover. We haven't started any of that yet. Do you have any anticipation what that might incur expense wise or?
It's not undisturbed soil out there. It's all something it's all been tilled before, it's all been done before. Yeah.
Yeah, I would expect that has all been done because you already have some conduit in the ground and vaults in the ground in very similar locations.
Well,
So-
when the casino was doing the EIS, they had to do a bunch of stuff in that area as well and check all the soil and everything, so, yeah, doubt there'd be a problem.
For the city's water system project, we actually had part of that orange line that goes from from Forest Lane up to basically up to Flex 6, check for archaeological, cultural resources. Yeah. In a similar alignment, there was none that were found. There's been geotechnical reports done on the port's behalf for both Flex 6 and Flex 5. Again, not specifically where the pole line is located, but in the same general vicinity. And everything over on Scramblett has already been dug up at least once. I did have one question, Guy, and you mentioned possibly offshoring the conductor. Is there any type of Buy America provision in the EDA funds that require domestically sourced material?
Good question.
Sorry.
Usually in the RUS stuff there is. On this EDA loan, it's been quite a while since I've gone through it very thoroughly. So I don't have the answer for you.
The chances are good that that is the case, but we need to, I know that the city has a project management firm that'll be reviewing a bunch of that stuff too.
You nodded your head a lot, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. We hired McCad to oversee or administer the grant, but I'm 90% sure there is Build America, Build Back Better, whatever they're calling it, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good question.
So we're looking at minimum 18 months.
Yeah. Well, for the time being, if anybody has any additional questions, otherwise I think it's just.
I guess, yeah, my only question is, will we be seeing any of those updated options and numbers? And when will we see those?
Is that what you want?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
You want to review the project available?
So let me ask a
Oh, right, you want
question.
to- I'm asking if you guys are wanting to review the project available. If you are, then yes, absolutely. That where we go next is now we come back and we take a look at this project as it is. And put together what's necessary for this board to make a decision on how to spend that 2.6.
Well, it sounded
Or
like
is it generally a discussion around the 2.6, right? There's a certain amount that this is. Is this project, as it sits and as it's designed, does it fit within your vision of that business park and what this board wants to do going forward? If it is, then yes, we very quickly come back to the board with all of the information that you guys are gonna need to make an informed sort of decision. If it's not, if you look at this and say, I don't know that this redundancy makes that much sense, I think I wanted more stuff to go out to the hotel. I think if potentially that 2.6 could be more beneficial to the board in other ways. I think we need to have more of a discussion, unless it sits as it is, if you go, this wasn't our project, but it's a good project, we like the project. Please bring me back what I need to have a better understanding of the very basics of this, like just give me the 1,000-foot view, no problem, we can bring that back. I just wanna make sure that that's where we're at.
I think as far as the discussion that we were having is. We don't know at one point the 14 costs would be. We don't know if we only do one side of the road, what those costs would be. So I think that would be probably beneficial for us to see.
If we have a full loop or we don't have the full loop that creates the redundancy in the switching.
Because knowing that,
So we're breaking.
because knowing that will allow us
to.
yeah, knowing that will allow us to further even start putting together those strategies.
And it may be our budget that, as you said, we do have other needs, within the business park, such as the Flex 6 building, et cetera, so. That may make some of the decisions for the city. I mean, they may have to.
Right.
Cut back based on a combination of inflation and the fact that, what we're able to contribute, so.
Yeah, I was looking at the Build America, Buy America Act, and there is a requirement for domestic content procurement. It requires all iron, steel, manufactured products and construction materials used in a covered infrastructure project to be produced in the United States. And then you contact the NIST/MEP for supplier scouting services if you need assistance there, so.
Point number 25 in the grant here does say by American Executive Order, it says consisting of Executive Order 13, quote, strengthening Buy American preferences for infrastructure projects, the recipient is encouraged to use to the greatest extent practicable iron and aluminum. So.
That was gonna be my other question, is given our supply chain problems and availability problems, are they, as EDA, willing to waive part of that, and we say, we can't get conductors?
In America.
So there is actually an exclusion here. It says there is non-availability, you can get a non-availability waiver, and that's why you would contact the NIST. So it looks like there is a pathway to do that, but I'm not sure what's involved there.
Well,
I just want to clarify, I have a consensus in order to continue to work on exploring this project in a way in which we would spend that 2.6 to upgrade electrical and business park.
Well, I think the kind of the thing is that
Part of it,
yeah.
like, is there a way to, like,
at least now we have, I think, enough.
we just need to know our functions, we don't really know what those are yet. With a lot of the information we're missing on the court side about budget and Flex 6 finances and stuff like that, and versus, like, can we use part of it toward paying down Flex 6 and part of it toward an upgrade, and,
Sure.
we kind of need to know what
Yeah.
is available to us.
Right.
And I think Jordan already kind of said, when he sees how much the port is gonna contribute, that may make some of his decisions for them, where things that they can,
I would say really like to
changes they can
continue
make,
to-
and based on our, what we believe is needed.
And not to belabor the points to get exactly what this commission wants, it's not a problem to bring it back to you. have we thought about what we've talked about to extend the road and paving roads farther out there? There are a number of ways that we can make improvements in that business park. There are a number of infrastructure upgrades that we can do. There are lots of options available to us. But currently, we're putting ourselves to this option and pointing the port and its staff and its resources in that direction, which basically says, this is what I want the port to do going forward. This won't be, that won't be a small part. That will come back with more questions likely.
Right.
And it will come back with more research, and it will come back with potentially additional quotes, and I'm great with that. But I also want to make sure that as you guys are looking at this, and I know you haven't put your entire vision together of what that business park looks like and what we do for it, is this how this commission wants to spend its time and wants its staff to spend the time? If it is, I'm all about it. Like, there's nothing more than I want you guys to be able to understand this project. And be able
Well,
to make
that's the thing, we don't really know what our options are, like paving roads, we haven't ever discussed it, so I feel like that is warranted. To have that kind of discussion between us and maybe at the next scheduled meeting or whatnot.
Yeah,
That
the biggest
we
concern
dive
is,
more into that.
yeah, the biggest concern is what's available in our budget. Timeline with filling in Flex 6, like if we fill it in within the next couple months versus a year later, how that affects funding this type of project. Like, we haven't had any of those discussions yet, so.
I think what Jeremiah is getting at is like, do we even want to move forward with this at all?
Yeah.
Period.
I'm leaning towards yes, I think this is a big move towards economic development in the town, and it's a mutual thing with the city as well. You know, when Gordon was city administrator, he really focused on the water systems and the wastewater treatment systems. Didn't have time to really touch on the electrical systems, so we're kind of at that chapter now in the city.
I guess another part of that question is, the types of businesses that we are, envisioning, do we project the need for 29 megawatts at?
Right, that's a big
The
thing, I
industrial
feel
park.
like this.
Or if you're talking about, you know,
Data
if you're
centers.
talking about a hotel and things like that that are, you know, by comparison, as far as the amount of acreage they take up for the amount of megawatts they use.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about, extending lines, versus, you know, to make accessibility there, or are we talking
I
about?
feel like my main goal would be accessibility,
Right, and so,
campground support, stuff like that, like. Stuff that we kind of envision when we have all kind of agreed on that data centers and high power users aren't really our focus.
But high power actually still, I think, can be our focus if we go down the line of, you know, with this new CHIPS and Science Act. Where really, you know, that really supplies the semiconductor industry, it supplies, you know,
But manufacturing.
manufacturing
chips
as
and
well.
stuff doesn't take nearly as much power as like operating a data center,
Right.
just. Yeah,
I think it'd be good to look at immediate needs before the future also, like what are we needing to do
And how
right
much
now?
power a
or-
casino would use if we did have something like that in there, you know. I think I looked at a rough number, 1 megawatt could power about anywhere from 200 to 900 residential homes. But I have no idea what it looks like for various types of businesses out there, you know.
So I guess that's the question, is what is the price difference for those three options that we put up? And it doesn't seem like you would want to go those numbers, it seems like our friends BKI would be more.
it's gonna be understandable, yes.
So,
And also to be able to formulate them, sure, go ahead.
yeah, it's, I mean, it sounds like we know what the three options we're kind of looking for. It sounds like I already had options available that he would be able to share, so to me, it doesn't seem like that's that, like. It doesn't feel like it's gonna take up 100% of your time for the next 6 months.
No, it's for sure not, right? It's not gonna go, unless this opens up a further discussion on. I just wanna make sure that we're not starting here,
I think it
when
needs
we
to be
could
a-
start. Wherever you guys choose to start,
Right.
right? You say, this is really what we envision with the business park, or the power, if you want to even just focus on power. And say, what do we really want out of the power that comes into this business park? Is it a tremendous amount of redundancy that's focused on those types of businesses? If it is, then we're really close, so we're really close, like, that's the design we have here, and that's what we want, like, let's dig into it and get you guys. Sure. Sound like. It's land. Then yes, perfect. But if we had a better understanding of the power system and our business park and what's potentially out there, then it comes back a little bit to more giving me that 1,000-foot view and then bringing you back your options. Right now, I'm sort of bringing back your options on a project that's already been created that I don't know fits within what you guys actually want to accomplish out there.
Right.
And I don't want to put you guys through that work. I don't want to put the board through the work. I don't want to put us all through the work if we're not looking at this and going really close.
I feel like they really need a 1,000-foot view more than anything to kind of see what all of our options are before we narrow down on getting all the work done on just the electric upgrade as our only option.
Feels like regardless of what we do out there, we'll need some sort of electrical upgrade though.
I mean,
This will be on there.
just
but yeah.
not the way it's designed potentially, you know, like, being able to just run lines down Cramlet Way, so that bolts up, you know, the east side and north.
If I wanted to put a campground out in the, I'm just asking for example, if I wanted to put a campground out in the disc hall, do I have the type of power there to do that?
That's probably a better question for Guy. If I understand correctly, there's some 4-inch conduits that run along Cramlet Way that do cross Cramlet to the east side. They were felt to be undersized to provide, 14 or 29 megawatts of power to that side of the road. But my guess would be, a decent sized RV park might have, maybe 2 to 400, panels. And, would probably draw well under a megawatt of power. Guy, does that sound about right?
I don't like to do those calculations without my calculator. To be honest with you,
I guess maybe to help the board commission make some decisions, it would be really nice to understand the overhead line on the west side. What is its current capacity? I mean, you mentioned that maybe Derek would need to go out there and take a look and see what size that conductor is. And then also what type of conductors can be placed in the existing conduits and vaults along Cramlet Way that do actually extend down Industrial Way. And what could those, what type of capacity could be carried by those conductors?
yep, and I know that one of our employees was out there with Derek, and I've just got to dig around and find where that information is. I'm not sure of the health of the conduit. I think that was looked at as well. Out over time, conduit does get crushed. So it's one of those things that I'll if I can't find the information, I'll talk to Derek and have him give me an update on it. And then I'll take a look at the biggest conductor that could put in the existing conduit and see what your maximum load through there could be, in conjunction with the wire that runs on the south side of the railroad and the street, and where it goes under the railroad crossing. And I can give you a maximum number of megawatts through that circuit.
That would be very helpful. All right, well, I think,
And make one point, kind of
Yes.
answer business plan side of it. The single biggest purchase for the city is the new transformer, the substation itself.
right,
And it was with the idea of large users in mind. So if the business plan is to not do the high-end users, we could scale back the size of the transformer we buy and redirect that money to redundancy or other items.
Do you have a target date to get that purchase?
Waiting on a decision from you guys.
Okay.
How big was
I
that?
think I have my answers.
What was that, a 40 megawatt?
Around 40, yeah.
And basically you never want to work it, use its entire capacity,
Yeah,
so that's where you're maybe in that 30 megawatts of actual usage.
Yeah.
We're also beyond the opportunity to get involved with the BPA tier 1 or 2, or the tier changes that they were talking about. Based on what you purchase, it's not gonna affect the tier changes that are coming up for electrical rates.
On a complete.
Okay.
Tier 2 max is.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess, for the time being, we've,
So, well, I guess for Jeremiah, I wanna make sure that we're clear. Do we want options or not?
I definitely want options, but I don't know about options for this
Sounds like-
specific project, like. What are our options beyond this project, like doing a smaller transformer like Jordan just mentioned, and we can still look at electric upgrade options. But maybe not what was specifically just presented to us, like what are some sized down options
Yeah.
that we have too?
This has been out of order, like we needed to have a discussion before this technical discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
if you don't,
But this is where this project is, right? This project is at the technical sort of piece of it, which is why we're not having it before the other one, plus all the other things, but you're right. That conversation.
For us.
We need to see those options before we have that meeting with the city in mid-November, so, you know, I think that's very important.
Agreed.
all right, anything further? If not, then, thank you, BKI, for coming and, joining us and, answering, all of our questions, and, we still got some work to do, it sounds like, but, if, there's nothing further, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, I know Carrie took it last night.
I'll second that addition.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor? Oh. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your, time.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you.